I'd like to welcome y'all back to another episode of Beyond the Fear podcast, a place where y'all come for motivation, inspiration, uplifting, and an overall positive message. I'm your host, DJ, and today's conversation is inspired by my session that I was having with my therapist. And, she asked me how I'm feeling, how I'm doing, and, I told her I'm in a good space, things like that. And because when we first started, a big thing for me was like, I got to get back to Houston. I got to get back to Houston. And so that was one of the things that she asked me was like, where is Houston for you, like on your priority list? And I said, it's still on there. It's still a priority, but it's not at the top of my list. And so she was just kind of like, wow, because it was like a big thing for me. Like when we first started doing my sessions, it was a big thing for me to be um back in Houston. So, when we've been having these conversations. So when we had this conversation, it was just kind of like, wow, to get to a point to where Houston isn't like the top thing. I haven't been hearing you mention Houston a lot. So to be in a space now where Houston isn't that big or that much of a deal, like how did you get to that space? And so we were talking about things, and then I said, my story isn't over, right? And that was like like the moment that I said it, I had the big aha, like that's what it is. I'm realizing now that my story isn't over. Like Houston can still be a part of my story. It doesn't have to be right now, though. There are things that are more important to me. My health, being in the gym, getting my weight down, getting my blood pressure down. These are things that are taking priority. So, Houston is still on my mind, but it's on the back burner. It's not as important as right now. So there's other things that are taking up space in my life right now to try to, get me to where I need to be. So Houston isn't that big as big of a deal for me. And I didn't even realize that until she asked me and we started to have that conversation. But she was truly amazed because she used to always tell me like, yes, if Houston is the goal, that's fine. Houston being the goal, but understand that you can take detours. It does, you getting to Houston, you don't have to go this route. There are going to be detours in life, and like I was pushing back against that so much, and I realized that Houston just became my excuse. It became the safe place because it's like I'm not doing as well as I should because I'm not in Houston, or I'm not finding the jobs that I want to find because I'm not in Houston, or whatever the case may be. And some of that is true because there are some better jobs in Houston. There are better pay. There's better pay in Houston. So there's more opportunities in Houston. So some of that was true, but a lot of it was just me making excuses for myself to not even try. Cause it's like, what's the point if it's not going to be as good as it was in Houston? So, Houston just became this larger than life thing to where it's like, it just became my reason to have these excuses of why things aren't working. If something ain't working out, all it's because I'm not in Houston. I'm not making money I want because I'm not in Houston. I'm not going further in life because I'm not in Houston. So that Houston just became this mythological thing, this cure all. Like everything was supposed to just life was just going to automatically get better once I got to Houston. So I'm holding on to it so tight, and she could see that. And so for us to almost a year later to have this conversation, and it's like Houston is still the goal, but it's on the back burner because I'm trying to like I'm in the gym, and so that's taking up a lot of my mental space. I'm trying to, do these different things, and I'm just working on myself mentally. And she was, and then like I said, once I said, plus my story isn't over, that was like the huge takeaway for myself, and that's the theme of today's episode is that your story isn't over. Like you may have just suffered a big loss. You may have, lost that job. You may have lost an opportunity. You may have, and it may have been your fault, or it may have been something that was out of your control. Who knows? But just understand that your story isn't over. Just because you're going through you're going through a down period right now. Your story is still going on. Life is full of ups and downs. Life is full of ebbs and flows. Like, you are going to, as long as you don't give up, you'll be able to climb that mountain again, and you'll be at the peak. You'll be at that summit, before you know it. But just because you're going through one of these down periods, or whatever the case may be, doesn't mean that your story is over. You still have plenty of story left to tell, but you have to realize that that the opportunities are still there. Now, if you're just going to give up because you failed at something, or because something didn't work out, then yeah, your story is over, because you're choosing to fail. You're choosing to stop. But if you're willing to keep going, your story isn't over. So if you're like me and you want to be somewhere else other than where you are, and you don't see a way there right now, that's okay. Maybe that way hasn't opened up to you yet. Maybe there's some things that you still have to do in the place that you're in right now before that way opens up to you, and now you see the way. Who knows what needs to happen. But don't just give up just because you don't see a way, because other people might see a way. Other people may see something that you don't see, because their experience shows them, hey, you got to be willing to look in the places that you're scared to look, places you don't want to look. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes you got to be open to, as my therapist say, the detours. And you have to understand that your destination, life life that isn't lived in a straight line. So I know where you're trying to go. You want to get there in the shortest route possible, which is that straight line. But you got to understand that life isn't lived that way. There are a bunch of ups and downs. There are a bunch of turns. There are a bunch of things where you have to take a step back in order to take two steps forward. You gotta, sometimes you gotta sit down for a little minute, and really assess the things that you're going through, and assess your life, and assess the route that you're taking, or the people that you're trying to take with you, or the environment that you're trying to take with you, or the mindset that you're trying to take with you. There's so many things that you gotta sometimes sit back and take account of, and accountability of, before you can get to that next level, or before that road, becomes visible to you. Because sometimes the only thing that's getting in our way is what we see. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes we're so blinded by wanting to do things our way, and we got to do it our way, and it has to look our way, it has to feel our way, and it has to be with our people. And you know what I'm saying? And all of this stuff, that we get clouded, our vision gets cloudy, because it's no longer about getting to the destination. It's about making sure I do it a certain way, or making sure it looks a certain way, or it feels a certain way. And sometimes you got to sit down and you got to check yourself. You know what I'm saying? Like, all right, what's important to you? Is this destination important to you? Why is it important to you? Who is this for? You know what I'm saying? And it's a lot of checks and balances that you have to go through to get to where you want to be. But you have to understand the importance of those checks and balances. Those checks and balances are to help you get to those places, because sometimes the things that we're holding on to so tightly are the things that are the exact same things that are preventing us from getting to where we want to go. Because sometimes, there's only but so much room to get access to that next level. And it's like, you got to be willing to let go of some of the things that you're holding on to get to where you want to be. And I get it. I understand it. If you've been holding on to some of these things your whole life, you don't know what life is like without them. You don't know who you are without them. But you got to also ask yourself, is the next level worth finding out what life can be like without those things, or without those people? Is it worth it? Do you really want to know? And you got to find out. One of the things for me that I had to find out, I had to let go of all that anger that I had towards my dad. I've held on to that, and I've had that, and it's been a part of who I am. And I didn't know what I would be like, or who I would be without blaming him because that was a thing that made, you know, some parts of my life, some parts of my childhood easy, that I could just blame him. I could just put the blame on him. I didn't have to look at my mom and blame her, because in my story, she's been the hero. But I had to understand and make room for the idea of, even if you are the hero in the story, heroes make wrong decisions. Heroes make mistakes. And I had to allow her to be human. You know what I'm saying? And I had to allow my father to be something other than the villain, And so I had to have that conversation with myself, with my mom. And, I would have loved to have had it with my dad, but, he passed away. And I was so stuck on, just being stubborn, and now he got to come to me, and all that stuff, that, I never had those conversations that I probably should have had with him when I had those opportunities to have those conversations with him. But I say all that to say, now that I've started to let go of those things, and it's allowed me to see him in a different light. It's allowed me to see my mom in a different light, in better lights in both situations. And it's allowed me to get closer to my mom. It's allowed me to get closer to my dad, even though he's gone. Um, it's helped me out with my issues with like trying to have a mentor, because with my dad leaving, I did not trust older men. So anybody who was trying to like be a mentor to me, like any teachers or any principals who saw potential in me and were just trying to be there for me and help mold me and wanted to keep me from going down the wrong path, I wasn't listening to them, and I wasn't giving them a chance, because I saw my dad in all of them. And so it's helping me in that from that standpoint of, now I can go seek counsel from older men and not feel away, you know what I'm saying? Or not feel crippled to the point of where I don't even want to go seek that information. Or even if it's coming to me and it's being provided for me, I'm more open and receptive to it. Whereas before, I wasn't even trying to hear it, because all of this anger and this hate that I have for my dad, I'm brushing it off on them, and these are men who I've never seen before, have nothing to do with me, had nothing to do with my past. But in my eyes, they're like my father. And, and that's how I saw all older men. And so, you know, going through therapy has made me realize that, my dad not being there has affected me in so many ways that I didn't even realize and that I didn't even see. And, being able to let go of that anger and that hate and that frustration and that hurt that I had towards him for not being there, it has opened my eyes to so many things, and it has allowed me to gain so many things. But I had to let that go before I could get access to that. And so sometimes you have to let some things go before you can gain access. And it's a tough thing to realize, or it's a tough thing to understand, but it's worth it. You know what I'm saying? And what it's worth it for me. I can't sit here and tell you what's worth it for you, but if it's something, if you're trying to get to that next level, or if you're trying to get to that destination, whatever it may be, sometimes you got to take a step back and really assess what you're trying to carry with you, or who you're trying to carry with you, and understand that you have to be willing to let go of some things to elevate. You have to be willing to let go of some things to get to that next level. And again, I don't just mean people. Sometimes emotionally, you got to let go of some things. You got to forgive some people. You got to work through some things. You got to work through some traumas. You got to, because all of that messes with our vision, and we can't see clearly when we got all this hate for this person and all this anger towards this person and all this unforgiveness and unresolved issues over here. You know what I'm saying? All of those things cloud our vision. So sometimes we got to take a step back and really take inventory of our emotions and the things that we go through, and see what are some of the things that we can start working through, so that we can start letting those things go. Because, man, your story isn't over, and it's worth exploring who you can become and where you can go if you're willing to work through these things that you don't want to talk about, these things that you don't want to relive. And obviously, I'm saying do it at your time, but it's worth seeing who you can become when you work through those things, when you can start to forgive those people, when you can really start to let that pain go, let that hurt go, let that turn into love for something else, or turn that into something that you can turn that energy into something positive that you can pour into something positive, or pour into someone positive. You know what I'm saying? Instead of just staying stuck in this trap, and stuck in this cage, and stuck in this quicksand of and I get it because it's easy. Trust me, I understand. I understand how easy it is just to hate somebody, just to hate them, or to hate them because of something that they did, something genuine that they did to you. But what I also realize is that when we stay stuck in that hurt, and when we stay stuck in that pain, we're not hurting them. We're just hurting ourselves. We're limiting ourselves, because now there's a piece of you that's stuck in this place. And sometimes to unlock that next level and unlock those things, you need that peace that's stuck in this place of hurt, that's stuck in this place of pain, that's stuck in this place of, whatever you went through that had absolutely nothing to do with you. You could have been an innocent child minding your business, and something happened to you. You were not protected. People did not do what they were supposed to do for you. And because of that, now there is a piece of you that is stuck in this place, and you may not know how to let it go. And you may not even know that that piece is stuck. You know what I'm saying? And that's the beauty of therapy. Therapy showed me that there were pieces of me that were stuck in these places of hurt, in these places of harm, in these places where I should have been protected, in these places where, you know, there was nobody there for me. I had no umbrella. I had no coverage, and I just got rained on emotionally. And that trauma was able to rain on me because I didn't have nobody to protect me when I should have, because I didn't have the tools to protect myself. But now that I'm starting to unlock those things, and I'm starting to unlock myself, and I'm starting to take those pieces, and I'm starting to put them into the podcast, and I'm starting to put them into therapy, I'm starting to put them into my work when it comes to healing, I'm starting to put that into the gym, and I'm able to access more because I'm not having so many of my resources stuck in this place. You know what I'm saying? I'm able to take those pieces, and I'm able to put them in other places because I'm working through the trauma. I'm working through unlocking this cage. I'm working through unlocking this thing to free up this piece of me that's been hurting, or that's been stuck and been in frustration and anger and in whatever, you know what I'm saying, in a tormented space. And now I'm able to put those things into something positive. I'm able to put those things into, just working on bettering myself mentally, emotionally, physically. It's so freeing, but I also understand that every person has to get to that point and that realization, on their own or in their own time. You know what I'm saying? It took me a while to know, even though I knew I needed therapy, it took me a while to take those steps to fill out these questionnaires and to set that date and to take therapy seriously. But now that I am so thankful for it. It's one of the best decisions, that and me getting my trainer at the gym. Those two decisions and those two women are two of the best decisions that I've ever made in my life, because they are helping me unlock so much stuff, so much trauma, so much pain, helping me to unlock joys that I didn't know that I had. You know what I'm saying? So it's been a journey, and this hasn't been easy, but it has been worth it, because I'm moving a lot of stuff. Making a lot of stuff move, a lot of things that I've just been burying down deep. You know what I'm saying? I'm moving all of that stuff, man. I'm uprooting all of this anger that's been a part of my foundation. You know what I'm saying? I've been a very angry person for most of my life, not necessarily out front, for everybody to see, but on the inside, I've been a very angry person. On the inside, I've been a very frustrated and just rageful person. And now that I'm getting all these tools through therapy to help me dig up all of this stuff and to get to to get to the core of why I feel this way or where this anger comes from. And now I'm able to start saying, I forgive you, to forgive those people who've done those things. And I've been able to take that energy that was put into frustration or to put in that pain or, whatever it is. And I've been able to put it in other places. It's allowed me to unlock things and unlock my vision and unlock, you know, the ability to see that my story isn't over. No, I'm not where I want to be in any way, shape, or form, but I can also see that I'm not where I used to be. And that's a great thing. My story is not over. Your story is not over. There are so many things that left for you to do, but you got to start taking inventory of your life, not just on the outside, but on more importantly on the inside. What are the things that you could be doing to help fix you on the inside, to repair those things that's going on the inside, that hurt, that pain, that frustration, those things, like I said before, those things that you don't want to touch, that you don't want to talk about, those things that, like, you got to understand that you keeping yourself trapped in these places and in these spaces that you don't want to be in anymore. When somebody name come up, it bring you all type of terror, it bring you all type of pain, it puts you in a place where you could have been the happiest person before that name brought up, and now that that name brought up, it's like nobody can get you out of this bad place that you in. It's time to start working on those things, because your story isn't over. Your story does not stop at that pain. Your story does not stop with that name. Your story does not stop with that story or whatever that is that's going on. When you hear that name, or when you go back to that house, or when you go back to those years of your life, everything just stops for you. And it's like, it's time to get out of that. You know what I'm saying? And I hope that you find whatever it is, whether it's courage, whether it's support, encouragement, whatever. I hope that you find whatever it is that you need to start exploring that. And I know that it's not going to be easy, and I know that it's going to be hard, and I know it's going to bring up some things, but I'm telling you, you are worth it. You are worth figuring out what you need to start exploring those things, so that way you can start putting that into something else, whether that's putting that energy and that love into your kids, putting that into yourself, putting that into your improvement, putting that into going to school to get, a better life for yourself, whatever it is. It's time to start taking, your life back. It's time to quit giving those people, those events, those things so much of your energy and so much of who you are, the amazing person that you are. It's so much amazingness that's locked away because we don't want to deal with the things that have happened to us. And again, I don't know how hard that is for you. I'm not sitting here trying to pretend like I do. And I'm sure it's some of the hardest stuff that you have dealt with, and it's shaped who you are. But it's time to start dealing with it, so that way you can start to unlock more of who you are, unlock more of your potential, unlock more of the amazing person that you are, because I know that you know it. I know that you sense it. I know that you know that when certain things come up, or when certain dates come up, you go back into your shell, and it's time to start getting rid of those shells, because it's not fair that those people get to hold on to that they get to have such a place in your life, but yet they get to go on and do what they do. But in your life, you're stuck. You're stuck in that place of hurt. And every time you hear that name, or you see that person, or you pass by that house, or whatever the case may be, you're stuck in that space. And it's time to start getting out of those places, because I'm telling you, that energy that's stuck, that piece of you that's stuck, could be the exact thing that you need to unlock that next level. That could be the exact piece that you need, because you holding on to this pain, and you holding on to this hurt, you holding on to this frustration. And rightfully so, because it wasn't fair. It wasn't right. It shouldn't have happened. And you should have had people there to protect you, especially if you were a kid when this happened, when whatever happened. But it's time now, because you're an adult. It's time to start working through those things. So that way you don't have to so it doesn't have that power over you anymore. It doesn't have that hold on you anymore. It's time to start working through those things so you can start breaking those chains so that way you can start getting to the levels that you're supposed to be at. You know what I'm saying? Getting to those things or meeting those people or whatever it is that, you're supposed to be doing. It's time to start working through those things because I'm telling you, I'm going to keep saying it because it's worth saying. Your story isn't over. If you're not where you want to be, if you're not where you feel like you're supposed to be, I'm telling you, start looking on the inside. Yes, take inventory of the outside, take inventory of the people around you, take inventory of the environments you're in, and start doing what you need to do in those spaces. But more importantly, start taking inventory on the inside, figuring out where that hurt is, figuring out where that pain is, where that anger, where that rage, that frustration, that disrespectful side of you, figuring out where that stuff is. And I mean, really figuring that out. And I also understand that it's hard to do by yourself. So you might need therapy. You might need those people to help you unlock this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Because I wasn't able to unlock it by myself. You might need that help to help you unlock it, but it's worth unlocking because I'm telling you, you have potential. You have so much potential tied up in your hurt. You know what I'm saying? So much potential tied up in your pain, so much potential tied up in your past that you don't want to deal with, that you don't want to resolve because you don't want to go to those places. And I understand, but you're not that little kid anymore. You're an adult. You don't have to be scared anymore. You don't have to let that person or those things, those places, you put you in that place of fear anymore. You can handle it. You have a good support system around you. Start to open up to them about what's going on and start to work through that because it's worth it. You're worth it. Your life is worth it. Your journey is worth it. Getting to where you want to be is worth having those conversations and dealing with those demons and dealing with your past. So that way you also don't pass that on to the next generation. It's time to start unlocking those things, not just for yourself, but also for your children. You know what I'm saying? Because there may be a piece of you that's that you can't love the way that you want to love because of something that happened to you, and you can't be there for people the way you want to be there because of something that happened to you. And it's time to start breaking those bonds, and it's time to start breaking those chains, and it's time to start elevating yourself. But it starts with taking that inventory and really figuring out what it is that you got going on to get to the places that you want to be. And we don't realize how many things are tying us down, how many things we're tied to, how many negative things we're tied to because we get stuck in those places and then we just forget about it because we think that if we forget long enough that it didn't happen and it's not real and we're not in this whole time we're still being anchored to all of this stuff. So it's time to start looking inward and starting to cut those chains and cutting those ties and breaking away from all that negativity so that way you can put those resources, put all that energy into something else, something more positive, which could be loving your kids, loving yourself, loving other people, or putting that energy into, climbing that corporate ladder or whatever it is that you're trying to do, hitting the gym, whatever it is. It's time to start doing that, man, because again, I'm going to say it for the last time on this episode, but it won't be the last time you hear it. Your story isn't over. But that's it for today's episode. I hope that y'all got something from this, man. And just please, please, please realize that, man, you are worth it. You are worth going to revisit that pain and that trauma because it'll be worth it to unlock those things and to realize how much energy you were putting into that now can be put into something else, can be put into yourself, can be put into other people around you, whatever the case may be, but it is worth it. And I want to thank everybody for listening on whatever platforms y'all are listening on. I appreciate it. To everybody watching on YouTube, I want to thank y'all as well. Please continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And until we meet again, man, y'all have a blessed one.